Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks again for joining us here at KAKM for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. The flood advisory remains out for the Kenai River, but water levels on the river and the lake are falling. And however, the water levels on the lower portion of the river are expected to rise slightly through the weekend, but this advisory is set to expire at 6:45 this evening. Moving on to satellite imagery, a pretty good frontal system here over the Gulf of Alaska with gale force winds up along the North Gulf Coast today. Rain along the coast from Yakutat back to the west. Cordova had moderate rain today. Valdez picking up some rain, as well as Seward. And then more of a kind of an intermittent showery condition in over south central Alaska, and clouds spreading in over the southeast coast, but enough sunshine down to the south there to push temperatures into the lower to mid 60s. Then there's another band of moisture right through here, bringing some rain to Northway, Delta, on back to the west toward Norton Sound, and kind of a cloudy day across the Seward Peninsula, but a lot of sunshine here from Fairbanks, about the Tanana Valley northward there across into the Brooks Range. And low clouds gave way to sunshine over the north slope there. In this loop you can see how it kind of burns off, but gusty east winds 25 to 35 miles an hour kept clouds in over the eastern Arctic coast and central areas, but clearing skies there around Point Lay. Otherwise, out over the Bering Sea, lots of clouds out through here, kind of low pressure up over the northwest Bering with some areas of rain. That'll be slipping on into the Pribilof Islands this evening. But for the Aleutians, cloudy skies, but a few breaks out here to the west toward Adak and Atka. As you can see, moisture and slipping into the Alaska Peninsula. Generally a dry day there today, but some rain did get into the False Pass area this afternoon. Some breaks over the Bristol Bay zone here with some sunshine, but a lot of clouds again over south central Alaska, clearing on the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula. General area high pressure out here over the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians made for light winds and a dry day. Most areas there from the Fox Islands all the way out toward Shemya, but low clouds, fog made for some IFR flying conditions, mostly due to the low clouds being under 1,000 feet out toward Shemya. And then the clearing up here to the north and the persistent clouds along the eastern Arctic coast with the gusty winds. Here's this low center in the Gulf of Alaska in the front off the southeast coast. As that moves in tonight, there are gale warnings for the north-southeast coastal areas in the eastern Gulf Coast tonight. And rain will spread in over the southeast, all of the panhandle tonight, but become a little more showery here toward Cordova and into Prince William Sound. Look for showers to diminish and possibly end. Mostly cloudy skies here over south central Alaska. There could be some areas of low clouds and fog forming, or there are the low clouds already. Could be some patchy areas of fog forming over the Cook Inlet area tonight, as well as the Madanuska Susitna Valley. Generally, though, looking at showery conditions up along the Alaska Range. Scattered showers over the Copper River Basin and the Kuskokwim Valley. Still a chance of showers, but just cloudy skies out here to the west, staying fair. Variably cloudy to mostly clear over the northern interior areas. Look for the low clouds to kind of increase again along the north slope, but persist along the eastern Arctic coast there. IFR conditions with areas of fog on the eastern coast. And then this low pressure area spreads rain into the Pribilofs tonight with low clouds, fog, drizzle, or rain, or a combination of the three reaching the southwest coast late tonight and possibly the Alaska Peninsula, but more definitely into the Pribilof Island areas. Stays dry, no change down here over the eastern Aleutians and all along the Aleutians all the way out to the west. A warm front though bringing some moisture up toward the western areas late tonight, and you'll see tomorrow a frontal system bring some a little bit of an increase in the wind and rain into the far western Aleutians, but staying to the west of Adak tomorrow with high pressure just southeast of Atka. And then low pressure now northwest of the Pribilofs, or just off the southwest coast. That'll increase the showers and rain here across the southwest interior, especially along the coast. Along the Alaska Peninsula areas, low clouds, fog, and drizzle, pretty dominant there over the southeast Bering Sea back out to the Pribilofs. Otherwise, cloudy skies here across the northern Bering Sea. Another mostly sunny day here over the northern half of the state, again up to the Brooks Range through the interior valleys and the North Slope, but still got some gusty east winds and low clouds and fog there on the eastern Arctic coast, and low clouds, but better flying conditions there on the east side. And then that front moves through, but another trough keeps it wet here along the southeast coast, so periods of rain and showers going, but should dry out along the North Gulf Coast. Looking for mostly cloudy skies over south central Alaska tomorrow. Scattered showers, the Copper River Basin, up along the Alaska Range, and again back out to the west here across the Kuskokwim Valley, western Alaska Range, out toward Norton Sound, Unalakleet to St. Michael, chance of showers, and then more numerous showers down here over Bristol Bay and the southwest coast, back to Nunivak Island. And the forecast for Sunday, this low center moves up and takes the place of the one previously in for tomorrow. So that area of showers and rain will move in across south central Alaska. Actually, just a chance of showers over northern Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula areas. That'll extend down to Kodiak Island and back into the Kuskokwim Valley. Western Alaska Range looks kind of damp with some shower chances down to the Kilbrook Mountain areas, and also back up here just over southeast of Norton Sound, some shower chances, but over the northern half of the state, not much change. Another mostly sunny day coming up with light wind conditions. Low clouds and fog now more prominent on the western Arctic coast, and they will be on the east side there. So look for some IFR through this area and down into the Bering Strait with small craft advisory, northerly winds through the state to St. Lawrence Island, looking at north winds 25 knots in the forecast for Sunday in that marine area. Otherwise, still showers and periods of rain here for the southeast coast, becoming a little more showery in the afternoon and toward the evening hours, probably scattering out. And as this next system approaches, and then out to the west, narrow band of rain coming into the Adak and Atga area and then extending back to the northwest there, but not much of a wind producer at all. Generally 10 to 20 miles per hour. Light variable winds here over the eastern Bering Sea down to the eastern Aleutian areas. Light winds also for the Alaska Peninsula. So with those light winds, look for considerable low clouds, fog, and maybe some areas of drizzle, but possible clearing here along the southwest coast, and then low clouds and fog, as I mentioned, up into the Bering Strait. Temperatures this afternoon, mid-afternoon temperatures along the southeast coast. There was a 64 at Annette, 63 at Klawock, 58 in Sitka, and Juneau was up to 61 with a 54-degree reading there at Skagway, 50 degrees and rain in Yakutat, 50 also over at Cordova, Middleton Island and Seward, both up to 57 this afternoon. Valdez 52, about the same in the Copper River Basin at Gulkana with 51, Northway 51, 53 also at Delta, but a little more clearing. Sunshine 63 at Fairbanks this afternoon, 54 in Nenana, 54 also at Talkeetna and in Palmer and Kenai with a 52-degree reading recorded at Homer, 60 degrees in Kodiak this afternoon with Akiak at 57. Farther to the north, the upper Yukon Valley, Fort Yukon had 54, a little bit milder at Bettles with 57, 52 at Anatuvik, and a cooler 45-degree reading there at Arctic Village. Eastern Central Arctic coast, upper 30s or mid to upper 30s this afternoon, but some sunshine pushed Point Lay up to 52. Cape Lisburne hit 60 today and upper 50s to near 60 over the Kotzebue Sound area. Ambler was up to 61. Mid 50s there along the southern coast of the Seward Peninsula with Nome at 55. About the same at McGrath, 54. 54 also at Sleepmute with 53 at Unalakleet, 52 down at Bethel, and Macoriac with Amonic at 49, and Gamble out at St. Lawrence Island had 48. Lower 50s for the Pribilofs this afternoon, and 50s along much of the Aleutian chain. A little bit of sun pushed Adak up to 57. 54 with some rain at False Pass. Sand Point, though, up to 61. Mid-50s for the peninsula, but King Salmon at 60 degrees this afternoon. Togiak had 52. Lows for tonight, upper 40s to lower 50s for all of the southeast coast, and then mostly into the mid-40s here for south central Alaska. Lower to mid 30s up in the clear areas there, the upper Yukon Valley areas, with generally upper 30s to lower 40s through the Tanana Valley. Mid to upper 40s here out over the southwest interior, with upper 40s to lower 50s also for the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians, and lower to mid 30s there for the eastern Arctic coast and the North Slope areas. For highs tomorrow, lower to mid 40s up along the Arctic coast and North Slope, and mid 50s here for the Brooks Range area, but into the 60s where the sun will be shining more frequently here over the Tanana Valley and the Koyukuk, Kobuk valleys all the way out to Kotzebue Sound. Otherwise upper 50s to lower 60s for south central Alaska and the Susitna Valley areas, reaching the lower 60s, could reach 60 degrees in the Copper River Basin. Mid to upper 50s for the southeast coast, same thing for the Alaska Peninsula, the Aleutians, lower 50s for the Bering Sea. And for flying weather, IFR, central and eastern Arctic coast again, marginal VFR possible along the entire stretch of the coastline up there, but VFR again through the becoming VFR for the North Slope Brooks Range area all the way down in the Tanana Valley, and becoming VFR here across south central Alaska with some lingering marginal stuff here over the Copper River Basin up to the eastern Alaska Range. Marginal VFR in the forecast for all of the southeast coast, and a big area of marginal VFR forecast here over southwest Alaska up across Norton Sound to Golovin and Nome, and then kind of marginal out over much of the Bering Sea. IFR way out here to the west, west of Amchitka and Nikiski, or Kiska Island and Shimianatu. Look for IFR way out there. For the passes, VFR conditions for Anatuvik, same forecast for Adigan, should be good flying through those passes. Lake Clark and Merrill, look for marginal VFR. Marginal VFR also forecast for rainy. Windy, marginal becoming VFR. Same forecast for Isabel, marginal VFR improving throughout the day. Mentasta, same trend, starting out marginal, becoming VFR. Tanita, also marginal VFR early in the day, then becoming VFR, probably late morning or by noontime. Portage, starting out IFR, becoming VFR during the morning hours. Chilkoot and White both look marginal. Freezing levels shows about not much, kind of isothermal here across the state. A little cooler up here to the northeast, we're 4,000 feet, but generally 8,000 feet over much of the mainland area as well as the panhandle. And then some cooler air coming down over the northern and southeast Bering Sea areas, 6 to 8,000 feet through this area, and then kind of extending on back to the west. Icing threats, mostly above about 8,000 feet of the light to isolated moderate rime varieties here along the southeast coast. Best chance will be down to the south, less of a chance up to the north. Otherwise icing free here through much of mainland Alaska from the Gulf of Alaska up to the Arctic Ocean. Excuse me, look for icing over Bristol Bay and the southwest coast and also out to the west. Upper level wind flow chart showing the zonal jet here 80 knots, kind of diving off to the southeast. And at 9,000 feet, northeast winds 5 to 10 knots, pretty light over the interior. Southerlies 10 to 20 knots, up to 25 out over the western Bering Sea. And southerlies 5 to 20 knots here for the southeast coast. High pressure over the southeast Bering, and turbulence, maybe some moderate chop below about 4,000 feet here out to the west, maybe along the southeast coast, and up here over the Chukchi Sea. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. On behalf of Alaska Public Media, thank you for watching Hangar Flying. This evening, we are pleased to have Miss Willow Hetrick on the show. Welcome to the program, Willow.
Thanks, Mary.
Willow is the winner of the 2015 Ellen Paniak Memorial Scholarship, which is given by the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. Willow got an early start in aviation when her parents brought her home as an infant from the hospital in a de Havilland Beaver. I don't suppose you remember that first airplane ride, but Can you tell us how your exposure to aircraft influenced your love for aviation, Willow?
Sure, and I do not remember that first airplane ride, but we lived out in Prince William Sound for many, many years, and that was the only way to get back and forth to Anchorage. Then my parents moved to Moose Pass, Alaska, and actually today we live on an airstrip, a little tiny grass strip, and we see planes flying all day, every day out of there.
So you're constantly reminded about aviation and how important it is.
Yes, yes.
So you have a degree in marine resource management and a master's degree in natural resources and environmental management. You have a background that's a little bit diverse from a lot of our pilot applications. And I understand that you were working as a biologist when you decided to combine your love of aviation as well as your love of the outdoors. What's your long-term goal?
Well, I was being flown a lot for work, doing wildlife surveys, and through those jobs, I heard about these great positions in the federal government that combine being a biologist and also a pilot. And the day after I heard that, I swear I started to try to learn how to fly. So that would be my ultimate goal, but if that doesn't work out, just throughout the years being able to explore Alaska from the air is invaluable.
What type of ratings do you think you'd like to have, or what type of aircraft would you like to fly?
I have my private, instrument, and commercial, and I'm also an instrument and advanced ground instructor as well. I would love to fly any airplane. I think to close the loop, I'd love to fly a Beaver one day, just like the first flight I ever took.
When we received your application in March, you were working on your commercial license.
Yes.
What have you been doing lately?
Well, I finished my commercial actually later in March, I believe, the end of March, if I remember correctly. And since then, I just transitioned right into the CFI training. Flying from the right seat is a little different, and I'm going to use this scholarship to have an instructor with me in the left seat while I relearn all the maneuvers looking at a different vantage point from the right seat.
I've heard it said that you never really learn aviation until you teach it to someone else. Are you finding that to be true?
I am finding that to be true, and I look forward to doing it more. I love it so much, I can't wait to share it with everybody.
So at the time of your application, you were also working 2 jobs, both in aviation-related businesses. Are you still working 2 jobs?
Yeah, well, yes, in a sense. The company that I work for has a different division, I'll say. So I'm working in 2 different divisions, not necessarily 2 jobs. But that division specializes in aerial remote sensing and aerial surveys. And for them, I do a lot of flight planning, flight tracking, data management. So I'm still involved a little bit, although I'm not actually flying the aircraft.
Okay. So does working on that side of the planning for flights help you in your CFI training?
It does. It does. I learn a lot of different softwares. I don't know that I can list them all right now, but getting the weather, communicating with the pilots of the weather and the tracking, it all helps, even though you're not actually flying an airplane. I feel very lucky to at least have an ancillary, connection to operations on a daily basis.
Oh, exactly. It helps being around aviation, and it helps you keep your goal in mind too,
Yes.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it does.
Well, thank you very much, Willow. We're going to have you back on our next show, and we're going to talk some more about your training and some other interesting things that you've done lately. And we'd like to hear a little bit more about how you are using the scholarship money.
Sure, I'd love to come back. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. I'd like to encourage anyone in the audience that is working towards a career in aviation to apply for one of our scholarships. The scholarships are not just for pilots, but are for anyone involved in an aviation-related program, including maintenance and dispatch. Applicants also need to live in Alaska, and they need to intend to make aviation their career. Thank you to Alaska Public Media for their support of hangar flying, and in helping us to introduce you to some of the names and the fresh faces of aviation professionals. Thanks for watching, and fly safely.
Today's sea ice analysis still shows this huge open area up here to the north with sea ice to the south here, kind of a break right in through there, and then some more ice through here, and still have some remaining ice along the barrier islands. And the ice edge through here expected to move to the west 10 to 20 nautical miles through Monday. Then the whole thing might shift to the south about 5 to 15 nautical miles Tuesday and Wednesday, and then this area down through here may shift to the east 5 to 10 nautical miles through the same time period. Looking at the forecasts, northerlies at 10 for northern Lynn Canal tomorrow, otherwise southeasterlies up to 20 knots for Clarence Strait with seas running 2 to 4 feet. Small craft advisories here for the north coast from the east-southeast up to 25 knots with 10-foot seas. Southerly winds at 15 for the central coast, and on the extreme south coast, kind of a westerly direction, but seas, even with a lighter wind, still up to 8 to 9 feet. So small craft advisories, even though the winds are below 25 knots. So small craft advisories here for the entire coastline. And for Sunday, light winds in the south, southwesterlies 15 to 20 knots here for the south coast, and then southeasterlies for the north central coast at about 20 knots, east 15 for the north coast. Clarence Strait, southerlies at about 20 knots with 4-foot seas for Stevens Passage. South winds are actually for these central and northern inside waters, kind of a south to variable wind condition, 10 to 15 knots with 2 to 3-foot seas. And for Cook Inlet, light variable winds at 10 knots tomorrow with seas pretty slight, just 1 foot, and not much different for Prince William Sound. Variable winds at 10 knots and 2-foot seas. Light variable winds here for the western North Gulf Coast, but northwest at 15 with 7-foot seas for the central coast. And then Kodiak Island, or actually the Barren Islands into Kamishak Bay, Shelikof Strait, and the waters east of Kodiak Island, all westerlies at 15 knots with 4 to 6-foot seas. And for Sunday, no change. Light variable winds with pretty slight seas here for Cook Inlet. Same forecast for Prince William Sound. And light variable winds here also for the North Gulf Coast with 5-foot seas. Northwesterlies here for the Barren Islands at 15 knots, about the same there along the east side of Kodiak Island. But very light variable winds here for Shelikof Strait and Kamishak Bay. Out over the Bristol Bay zone, light westerly winds tomorrow, seas just 2 feet, 15 knots here for the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, and west to southwest winds from Cape Sarachev all the way up to Sitkinak with 6 to 7-foot seas. And the outlook for Sunday, westerly winds 15 knots here for Bristol Bay, down the coastline there with areas from Cape Sarachev all the way up to Sitkinak. Pretty uniform wind pattern. Northwesterlies 15 knots with seas running 8 to 10 feet. And out in the Aleutians, for the Fox Islands, west to northwesterlies 10 to 15 knots with seas 3 to 7 feet. Of course, highest seas on the Pacific side of the islands with southwest winds for the central Aleutians tomorrow at 10 to 15 knots. And then small craft advisories as that next front rolls into the western Aleutians there, 25-knot winds with 9-foot seas. And then for Sunday, those westerly winds, or the southeast winds, become westerly. Hold on to the small craft advisories for the far marine zone out there. Otherwise, west becoming south, 10 to 20 knots here for Adak and Atka. West to southwest winds for the eastern Aleutians, pretty light, 10 to 15 knots, but small craft advisory seas here on the Pacific side of the islands. And for the southwest coast, north of Nunivak Island, northerlies on the light side and light westerlies south of the island. North winds at about 10 knots for St. Lawrence Island, the northern Bering Sea. Looks like the strongest winds will be westerly at 15 for the Pribilof Islands, with the highest seas also down in that area at 5 feet. And for Sunday, northwesterlies here for the coast, southwest coast, 10 to 15 knots, but small craft advisories in the forecast for St. Lawrence Island up to 25 knots, seas 5 feet. Light southwest breeze there for the Pribilofs, and northerlies at about 15 for the northern Bering Sea. excuse me, up along the eastern Arctic coast, look for easterly winds at about 20 knots with seas running 4 feet. So a pretty general wind condition here for the eastern coast, a little bit lighter for the central coast, all the way down becoming northeast there from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort at 15 knots, and then from Wales to Cape Thompson, northerlies at about 15 knots with seas running 3 to 5 feet. And taking a look at the outlook for Sunday, those winds pick up here from Wales to Cape Thompson, 25 knots. That's good for a small craft advisory for that day. A little bit lighter there up to Cape Beaufort, northerlies at 20 knots, and then back to northeast down to 15 knots here for the western Arctic coast. Central coast, kind of a northerly breeze there up to 15 with 3-foot seas, and the winds not too bad on the light side, but remaining easterly at 10 to 15 with seas running 2 to 3 feet. Looking at tonight's weather again, rain and wind move into the southeast coast. Gales along the north coast here back to the eastern Gulf Coast, diminishing back to the west. Rain becoming more showery along the north Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, and just some numerous showers becoming scattered, possibly ending here over south central Alaska with some possibilities of fog here over the Susitna Valley and into the Cook Inlet area, as well as Bristol Bay. Kind of showery here on the entire, cloudy and showery over the entire southern half of the state, staying fair to the north, and low clouds and fog on the Bering Sea, or on the eastern Arctic coastal areas. This low clouds, fog, rain, and drizzle progressing across the Pribilofs this evening, trying to reach the southwest coast late tonight, and then the warm front associated with that next system pushes some wind and rain into the western Aleutians there with small craft advisories out in that area. Very wet conditions here with IFR or marginal VFR across the Pribilofs and across the southeast Bering Sea. This system will bring shower chance increase there to the southwest interior. Beautiful day up over the northern half of the state again from about the Tanana Valley northward to the north slope, and then low clouds and fog, no change along the Arctic coast, looking for lighter winds there on the east side. Wet across the Panhandle both tomorrow, and then a little more showery but still mostly cloudy with a chance of rain across all of the southeast coast. And then the system comes out of the southwest there and brings a chance of rain over south central Alaska and the North Gulf Coast. Shower chances down to Kodiak Island. Well, that's all for this edition of Alaska Weather.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.